Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Drama Strategy Podcast. In this episode, I want to talk about something that I've noticed, and this is something that came to my attention as I was watching a new Korean drama. So, as some of you might know, there is a new Korean drama titled My Lovely Journey, right? And it's basically following this character, Kang Yarum, that is a former idol that, is one of those kind of idols that you consider to be unsuccessful. She's a failed idol, as they would say. And with that idea of having failed, she's in a really difficult place. And then in comes this opportunity to travel around to different parts of South Korea and basically travel in place of someone, right? So someone wants to go somewhere. I think in episode 2, the character that patronizes her isn't even in the country, but they want to experience Buyo, which is a rural, small town, I think, in South Korea. And so they task her with doing that, and that's kind of how she's able to go on this trip, right? And I think what's interesting about this idea is that it reminded me of the fact that I actually don't get a lot of like slice of life Korean drama, like just like purely slice of life. And maybe slice of life is not the word I should use because maybe that's not what I mean. But there's this genre of dramas, right? And this is not something that is specific to Korean dramas. I will say that this is even more common with Japanese dramas where the character isn't doing much of anything throughout, right? They are doing maybe one thing or two things, and that's basically all you watch them do throughout every episode, right? And it's always something small, something minute, something mundane sometimes, right? And we as the audience are just following them through that, right? So some of you might know like Kodoku no Gome, which basically means the solitary gome. It's a Japanese drama that basically all the person is doing is going around and eating after work, right? And we just watch him go to different restaurants and just be enamored and just enjoy his food, right? And they go on for like 2 3 seasons of these things, right? And so when I was watching the first 2 episodes of My Lovely Journey, or really the second episode, I realized that it reminded me of that idea and the fact that actually I don't see much of that, right? So we see how as Kangyerum gets to the countryside, she's suddenly experiencing new things, right? She meets a lady at the bus station that gives her eggs and tells her about the place she's going to. She's able to go to the countryside, Buyo, and kind of just take in the air, enjoy herself, and heal in a way, right? And that's, I think, what a lot of the slice of life dramas that are just like almost mundane is doing, right? They are supposed to be this kind of stress relief. Nothing is ever really happening in those dramas. There is no conflict, there's no angst, there is barely any drama. There's maybe 2 3 characters that you will see recurring. And that's if you're lucky, right? And so as I was watching My Lovely Journey, I realized that actually I don't see these kinds of dramas that much in Korea, right? Like South Korea doesn't do as much of that specific kind of slice of life, right? So they do slice of life in the sense that like there's very little conflict, and people are generally shown as amicable, right? Like people are not rude mean because that's not the vibe of the whole show, right? And so a good idea is like hospital playlist, right, where we're following this group of doctors and we just follow them through different days as they work with patients. We see the patients that we've seen since episode 1. We see the end of their journey in episode like 10, 11, or 12, and you kind of follow different people and there's never really any conflict. There's a little bit of tension sometimes, but nothing major ever really happens. People just do their work, and it's very similar to real life in that sense, right? If not a little bit glamorized, right? If not a little bit painted with like a good picture that everybody behaves well most of the time, right? That everybody wants to do their job. And I will say that generally this is my favorite kind of genre, the genre where like people are just living their life. No one is the villain, no one is the hero. And circumstances happen to them, not because like people are like going out of their way to be like mean or evil, as opposed to like other dramas, right? And so that's why I really enjoy this genre, right? But yeah, that's something I noticed as I was watching My Lovely Journey. I don't know if they will keep going, where Kangyeorum is kind of like going to different places and experiencing new things and healing in that way, right? It would be nice to see that, right? Um I wish Korean dramas did more of this. I think the last true slice of life that I was like, okay, this is the most similar to a lot of the Japanese one that I have been watching is One Day Off, starring Ina Young, where basically she just takes like day trips to different places, right? And she experiences different things, right? That's the one I'll be like, okay, that's about as close to this idea, to this genre that I have seen, right? As opposed to, I think Japanese dramas do this way more, right? They can keep going with this, and I find it very interesting. And I was wondering, like, I was thinking about it, like, why is it that it's not a thing? And I'll say it's not even a thing in other like Asian countries, right? Like, this is just maybe just a specific Japanese thing. But because I watch Korean dramas the most, that's the only thing I can relate it to. But yeah, I was thinking about it, that like, why don't they do more? And I have an idea. So for those who know, like, if you are like an avid Korean drama watcher, you might also watch a lot of Korean variety shows. Have you noticed that a lot of their variety shows are similar to this? Like, in terms of like, there's something about their variety shows where it's just you following a person or a group of people as they do something, right? It's not necessarily something that's productive, really, but you're just following someone as they do something, right? And you watch them do it, right? I always like compare it to American variety show, where it's like supposed to be high conflict like environments, right? I'm thinking like Jersey Shore and the likes, right? Where, the music really sets the tone of how they want to like make everybody on edge as you're watching those shows, right? And I could never like get into those variety shows because it was always like, I don't know. And maybe I shouldn't call it a variety show because we call it reality shows here, right? But it's supposed to be real. Like, you're supposed to be like, okay, this is real life ish. That's the idea. You're just watching people live their life. So when I see them be so outrageous, I'm like, I am not like this. I don't know anybody that's like this. So, like, what is this, right? And theirs is purely for entertainment, because the entertainment, I think, when it comes to reality shows, is fast. It's very hyper, right? And so when I saw Korean variety shows and I saw how calm it was, right, I was actually really shocked. And till this day, I watch a lot of it. I do like Running Man, right? Back back when I used to like be really into it, right? I watched a lot of the episodes, right? But these days, I am more into the more day-to-day ish ones. So I really enjoy I Live Alone sometimes. I really like Fun Restaurants. That one too is really nice. And ones that I like that. There's one I remember that used to be on air, and it was basically following different people in their workplace setting, right? So every episode we would follow someone different and basically see what their like work day was like. And it was always so real because, I mean, you would see anyone from a developer to someone that works in steel, someone that was a housekeeper, things like that, right? And you really see how these people like live their life day to day, right? And it was very boring, but it really, like, my interest, my curiosity and everything, like, I was just so hooked with it, right? I watched all the episodes maybe, right? And so things like that, I guess I'm kind of nosy in that sense. Like, I want to see what people are doing and how they live their life, because it's interesting to see how other people exist, right? So that's kind of what I thought we would get sometimes with Korean dramas, but I think they shifted all that to their variety shows. And so that vacuum is filled by variety shows, right? Which, I mean, is also just as popular as their dramas, right? So yeah, I just thought about that as I was watching My Lovely Journey, because I was like, it would be nice to see some where, like, for example, you just like follow somebody as they go about painting different houses, right? Like that's an idea, just something very simple, right? There's one on YouTube that's a variety show. It's hosted by an idol or a former idol. I think it's a B2B member, and all it does is follow college students in different majors, right? So like today he can be in Yonsei University and he's basically following like an art student in that. Tomorrow is following like an engineer in Korean University, right? And it's just so interesting to me, and because you'd also never know until you see how obscure some majors are, right? There are some majors that are like, oh, that's interesting that that exists, right? You never think that exists, right? And I think it just gives me like a glimpse of how other people kind of exist in a world, like what they consider important, right? For example, I think there was a firefighting program in one, where I think in the US, and I might be wrong, right? It's more like apprenticeship, like training in with like firefighters themselves, right? So it was just interesting to me how that was like a program that you could do, right? So things like that, I find very interesting. And yeah, that's so I this episode I was supposed to talk about my lovely journey, but I was like, you know what, let's deviate a little bit and talk a little bit about this genre, because it is my favorite genre. I really like it, because it's just like my curiosity knows no bounds. Like I am always curious about things like that, right? So when I'm eating, you see me, I always put on like I Live Alone. That's my one of my favorite ones. It's just that sometimes like the hosts, they get on my nerves sometimes, right? But yeah, Fonsterand is a good one. I love the hosts and the like panelists on that one, right? And let me just say, I will never watch like a reality variety show, like a Korean variety show. What I mean by that is like their dating shows. Like I remove myself from things like that immediately. Like I have never watched a single episode of any of their like dating show ones, because I don't believe in such. So yeah, that's really all I have in this episode. I was actually supposed to cover ABO Desire, but I was like, he airs once a week. Maybe I should like give it a few more episodes so that I have more to talk about, and then I'll come back and talk about it. So yeah, you can expect more reviews about that. But yeah, thank you guys so much for listening to this episode. I hope you guys had a lovely time with me. I love talking about this. And if there's a specific topic you would like me to talk about, do let me know. I have a link to all my social media in my podcasts. So send me a message and I'll do my best to respond and cover your request. So yeah, thank you so much. I hope you guys have a lovely rest of your week. Have a lovely one. Bye.